the other day we were getting a shipment of aluminum in here, and you're looking at it and it's printed on there and it says made in USA, and of course that's what we specify. We want domestic materials, right? And I was thinking, there's a lot of things that we go through to try to get as much as we can made here in the States.
Most people assume things, and that seems to be what the manufacturers are taking advantage of. Because you'll see a lot of times products will say things like designed in California, designed in the USA, or something like that.
Assembled.
Made with global materials or assembled in the USA. What they mean is it's entirely made somewhere else, but they're trying to reduce that in your mind a smidge.
And there's various levels of how much work they might go through to actually assemble it.
Yeah.
It could be one screw.
Depends on the product.
Yeah.
Depends on the laws in the country.
It's misleading.
Yes, it very much can be, because a lot of times what you could have is a product that is 95% completed and there's 3 parts snapped together in an enclosure, 5 minutes of work, and they potentially could call that made in the USA in some circumstances.
Yeah.
Depends on the country, depends on the laws, depends on where it's being sold. But oddly enough, when they say made in the USA, if it's sold in the US, it doesn't necessarily mean that much. It doesn't mean what people think. There's huge levels of made in the USA.
Yeah.
And
even though there's not supposed to be.
It's not supposed to be,
Though
but it's a little loose.
I remember looking at the laws years ago about made in USA and, when it's right to say it or not. And this topic has come up in the headphone industry, and I know some of the other manufacturers have brought it up, and they went away from saying made in USA for various reasons, like, can't verify.
They didn't feel comfortable with it because of the laws.
I mean, a lot of the electronics, even if you're building the board discreetly, transistors aren't made here and stuff like that. So technically it's a percentage game. But when you look at the laws, they were kind of written for like automobile industry and stuff like that. They were made for industry. They weren't really made for like
consumer goods.
Well, that not really. Yeah, or even just to the level we're at, we're boutique level. They weren't really made for that. You could maybe you get your woofers from Scandinavia, but you're building the cabinets here, and that's a lot of work, and it's U.S. labor and all that. I mean,
right.
And then maybe you can't get the driver here anyway, so that's not like you have a choice.
Yeah. So at what point is it made in the U.S.? That's the question.
So I mean, usually by a law they go by a percentage where I don't know what it is. It might be 95%, but again, the laws were kind of written more for the industry, like automotive industry and stuff like that, more than anything, and that's kind of what they look at, maybe because that's where all the numbers and the volume are. And imports.
They definitely break it down on cars. You look at the
sheet
for
that reason,
29%, 30%.
That's more like what, and so it's very vague. It's difficult, but in general, if you want to be honest about it, there's almost probably nothing that could be 100%. I don't mean nothing. We have a Made in USA store that's actually locally based here. I don't even know what their website is, do you?
Yeah, but that's just product that says made in the USA on it. Right. It doesn't necessarily mean.
No, I mean, if supposedly the owner of the store actually goes and verify that it's. But I mean, there's simple things in there. It's like paper towels, toilet paper. There's some various things, printed and stuff. So, but you're not finding anything in there that's, really, you're not finding
complex
electronics. Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's no complex.
Yeah, with electronics, it's barely possible.
Yeah.
I don't think people understand that, but you do see people saying, well, why don't we just make iPhones in the U.S. or things like that because of these import tariffs or whatnot, the questions that they brought up. And that seems like a reasonable thing. Sure, why wouldn't every country make the devices they use in their country? But it's not usually practical.
You can assemble them here.
Even that, though, right now especially, huge labor shortage.
Yeah.
Where would you find the labor to do this work that was done in another country? How would you be able to do this? Because the scale of the manufacturing of products like that, it's tremendous.
Well, we're getting off topic, but on our little niche here with building headphones,
we don't have that problem.
Where we have maybe a couple hundred bins of parts sitting here that we got to use to put together to make 3 products.
It does seem like we keep adding bins. I don't know. It doesn't seem like we're adding more parts, but we always have. We could have another shelf with more bins on it.
Yeah. Well, at least you know where everything is, and you know when it's running out too. Lately, that's been the biggest problem is knowing when you're starting to run out low because lead times have been brutal for a lot of parts and materials and stuff nowadays in the whole world. But neither here nor there. The fact is that it's a challenge to find as much as possible that we'll use made in the USA. It's something you have to actively do on a continuous basis.
Yeah, There's actually a lot of issues with it. Some devices are simply not made in this country for one reason or another. Either the raw materials, the resources aren't available in the country and they have to be imported, or it's not practical for one reason or another. There's a huge number of components like this. It's just you cannot physically get them in this country.
They might have said somewhere 30, 40 years ago the industry might have existed.
Yeah, it doesn't anymore.
No, it's gone. And the good news is that's starting to come back. But it takes a long time after decimating an industry, so to speak.
It's not overnight.
Yeah, you got to have, first of all, someone's got to put up the money to do it. It's not like you could build a wire factory out of it.
I think that's probably the biggest problem.
Extruding metals,
upfront cost.
Yeah, there's a lot. You think about all the things that have disappeared over the years, and people don't realize it, but it just doesn't exist. The magnet industry, for example, you can't. There's nobody in the U.S. that makes magnets. Nobody, zero, can't do it.
Yeah, unless you're like the military or something, and you want one special magnet, and you don't care what it costs.
Yeah, they're doing one-offs. Yeah, right, maybe. Yeah.
But in production run, if you need it to be vaguely economical, you can't get it made in the U.S.
From what I hear, they're starting to look at that now too and trying to figure out if they could bring that back here. But that's gone. It's been gone for years.
Material problem on that one.
Yeah, well, we can get the materials, but the mining disappeared.
Yeah, we don't have the mining yet.
Yeah, but that's my point. Is if we were making the products, we would. But again, everything around that ecosystem.
Yeah, it's like the chicken and the egg situation, right? One economy collapses for one reason or another, and it pushes everything down. Right? If there's no coal-fired power plants, why is there going to be that much coal mining? The demand's going to drop off so far, it's going to kill that industry. And you see that trickle-down effect.
Anything, oil, everything like that.
Yeah, and then mining industries cause other industries to collapse too. If they collapse, it's a whole thing. And it's been a bit like that for a while with manufacturing in the U.S. There just isn't that much manufacturing done in the U.S., so it makes it a lot harder. If you're doing something you actually want to make it in the U.S., there's only a certain number of things you could physically buy that are actually made in the U.S. And we try to do what we can to make as many of the components domestically sourced as possible.
Right.
Most of our material, our aluminum, comes from very close. It's all domestic content, and we try to get it from as close as practical, but we're not going to buy inferior product in order to do that. So there's troubles there. You can't spend twice as much just to have it made nearby, but sometimes the best option is always to get it as close as you can, if you can.
Yeah, raw materials in particular like that because it's heavy and weighty, and we get it from local distributors.
Right.
We just got how many thousands of pounds in the other day?
Yeah, we got a few pounds.
Yeah,
that was like, I don't know, 6,000 pounds or something.
Yeah, that's a lot of aluminum.
But you don't want to be shipping that from China.
Yeah. No.
Right.
Yeah.
It adds a lot to the cost.
Yeah. And these are 10-foot long bars, too. It's not exactly, these aren't small.
They're not economical to transport. So there's a lot of things like that where it is practical to get in the U.S. and the cost difference is not significant, if any. Sometimes it actually costs more to import raw materials like that from overseas. But there's a lot of applications where there's a huge price premium to be paid if you want to do domestic. Now, sometimes this price premium could be, in an absolute sense, trivial. Pennies, fractions of a cent.
Yeah.
But maybe as a percentage it's huge, but absolutely meaningless in the scheme of the product. But there certainly are applications where it's just absurd premiums.
Well, I know I appreciate it when I see this huge 10-foot pallet of aluminum come in and just printed right on all the bars made in USA and, where the company is, and we even get paperwork that's traceable to show where it was, where it came from in the country. And it's pretty cool, and I mean, we try to do it as much as possible. And we're fortunate that we're making the parts from raw aluminum. So we know
right, for sure,
straight through to the finished product that was done here, We buy our coatings from a U.S. company. It's made here. We buy our tooling from U.S. companies. We buy our machines, our CNC machines. I don't know. Where are those made?
Japan.
Okay, well, the Japanese are pretty good at making those machines, We had a USA machine, supposedly a Mazak one.
It was a Kentucky machine,
Yeah, I don't know where they got their parts from, but it was assembled in Kentucky.
A lot of parts were from Japan.
Right. So, again, those are the type of things. But from the raw component goods standpoint, we're doing as much as we can. And a majority of our headphone, there's a lot of labor in it, which is all in-house.
Yeah.
So that's here. It's us.
Yeah.
It's our group.
The one guy that was delivering the aluminum one time, he's like, I like how you specifically source U.S. aluminum. He says most places don't.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
There's probably advantages to not caring, just going by straight by price, I'm sure.
Well, sometimes material isn't available in the size we need, domestically sourced. And so in those situations, it's a challenge.
Yeah.
Historically, I just try to order enough that we don't need to worry about this.
Right.
But if it isn't available, we wait until it is.
Right.
We have a small list of suppliers that we'll buy the material from. And from those suppliers, where there's only a certain number of mills that domestically source the material. And this is mined ore through the extruded aluminum bar.
Yeah.
So it's the entire chain is, of course, documented.
Right.
And you could verify the source of materials. And there's only a few places that we'll buy the material from. So there has been one occasion where I couldn't buy the material because it wasn't domestically available.
Well, now given the way the world's been and the lead times and the supply chains are screwed up, we're stocking a lot of material, so we're way out there in terms
which is causing different problems.
Yeah, well, space for
trip
one.
hazards.
Yeah, space. Yeah, we got to.
I hear everyone's doing that too, though.
Yeah.
I hear apparently most companies, if they could afford it, if they can manage it, if it isn't like this huge warehouse filled with stuff, they're trying to keep the critical parts on hand for a long time, way past what they normally would, and their lean manufacturing practices are kind of falling out of the window because the supply side constraints are so
ain't
bad.
Working right now at all,
Right. Well, lean manufacturing principles were always set up to have the things as close to the time when you need them as possible, not necessarily meaning a day before, but if you have huge supply side constraints,
that's true.
and you got to order them real far out.
If you're not
sometimes.
set up with space for that, wow, that could be a real.
It could be a lot. Look at auto manufacturing. It could be so much.
Just supply chain just coming through the door and through manufacturing and out.
Just as
you can't. You don't have the space to stack all this stuff.
But we're running into that problem.
Yeah, a little bit.
I mean, we have the space. It's just it's not ideal for thousands.
I guess our problem is we didn't really set up anywhere to put this stuff. Like we never had.
Well, because it was never a problem. We could order and have it tomorrow. Usually.
Yeah, we never had this kind of quantity on hand.
Yeah,
but a lot of people are running into this.
Shelf.
People are unaware, but in large scale manufacturing, a lot of times, like auto industry is a great example, where parts are big. You can't have 100,000 seats laying somewhere. Where are you going to put them?
Well, yeah, right.
You just don't have space.
Not possible.
And there's so many components. You have basically cars worth of parts laying everywhere, thousands or tens of thousands. It's so impractical to have these huge hordes. So what they usually do is they push that off to whoever the person they contracted to actually service the part, the supplier for that.
So they're
part.
renting warehouse space to put this
Well,
stuff.
not necessarily. They try, I mean, it depends on the situation. They try to manufacture it in a manner so that it's made just before it's needed and it's delivered just before it's needed. So literally this bin's empty, and at that exact moment a new one comes in that just came off the truck from the supplier. That's the goal, and a lot of times people get pretty close to that. But
the logistics have got to be screwed
it can be
up
tough
everywhere. Can you
in the
imagine
current situation.
dealing with the logistics of
it's a nightmare.
Large scale
million parts.
manufacturing?
Well, I guess we are kind of running into the same thing that happened with toilet paper and such last year.
Yeah.
Is since everybody's hoarding supplies more, it causes more of a supply chain
true.
shortage.
Well,
too.
apparently it's causing the big issue with the silicon shortage.
Yeah.
And we have seen a lot of that. There's been a lot of issues in the industry, and sourcing the parts that you're used to be able to get have been more difficult. And so if you're used to be able to buy this part and the lead time's a week, 2 weeks, a month, sometimes it's triple or quadruple what you're normally expecting, or sometimes it's not available at all.
All the vendors
and
are
you have to go to alternatives.
3 to 5 times out is what we're hitting right now, which is crazy. So which means you got to really plan ahead. You have to stock ahead. You have to order well in advance. We're ordering product as soon as we just got the product.
Pretty much.
We get
That's
some
what
product
we're
from
doing
somebody.
these
Say,
days.
hey, now it's because another order.
You place another order,
because by the time it gets here, we'll be out. It's crazy, And again, we're fortunate that most of everything we use, we make.
Right.
So it's great to be able to just have the raw material and just make our parts. But screws and just the simplest things we don't want to run out of. So it's a whole different way of thinking about what they have on hand, and not only that, you got to have the funds available to do this. You got to buy this stuff.
Sometimes
you're sitting
it
on
can be
inventory
expensive.
for a year before you go through it. It's way different than it used to be.
Yeah, and you don't want to have a year's worth of
Not
inventory
really.
in hand if you could avoid it. But
no.
in the current situation,
Right.
it's becoming very difficult to not do these things unless you want to run out of some critical part you can't assemble.
But we're adjusting. I mean, we've adjusted. We're figuring it out. We're buffering everything we can. We're getting stuff in advance of when we need it, way in advance. And sometimes it shows up on time, sometimes it doesn't. So.
Well, I guess even on big, not even just raw supplies, we just order a new machine, right? And they just keep saying, 2 more weeks to get it,
Yeah.
And
Now
now
it's
they
been
don't
2
even
weeks
like,
for 2 months now.
now.
Yeah, we got sheets of aluminum in, and we got, what's it called, a brake?
Shear.
A shear, yeah. we wanted to be able to make it easier to cut this rather than doing a more manual method because we're dealing with what, 4x8, 4x10 sheets.
No.
4x12.
12 sheets of
Huge
aluminum.
sheets.
Yeah, so we're like, let's get a shear for this, and so the shear is made in USA, and we got it from a U.S. made company.
It's made in Kentucky.
Yeah, and the salesman said, 6 weeks. Yeah, no
Yeah.
problem. 6 weeks. Well, it's been 10 now.
Yeah,
and counting, and they don't even know when they're going to get them.
Right. No,
Of
they don't
course.
even. They just.
So
Whole industry's like that.
That's the way it's going.
But that's the problem. Now we got 12 by 4 sheets of aluminum
sitting
just
in our
warehouse.
right, which we've expected to have
to cut
you
down.
timed when we were supposed to get the shear, and we could just figure go through it and make pieces out of it.
That is really in the way.
Yeah, that's really in the way. Yeah, so
well, you can't have everything.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of challenges like this that people don't see in manufacturing. We could go on in great detail for considerable length.
We deal with it.
There's probably 20 to 50 issues every day that you wouldn't expect, minor, trivial little issues. And sometimes they're really devastating. Sometimes they're big roadblocks. And sometimes they're caused by simply having to buy the parts from the U.S. If you didn't care where the parts came from, it does make it easier. And it is harder to buy
and that's
only
getting
domestic
complicated,
product.
Though,
Well, yeah.
outsourcing anything. Or
There's complications with everything, absolutely.
I mean, even if you think about it's just, it makes the job much more difficult. Because where you would have been spending time doing whatever you normally would do, you're looking for this one part somewhere, which everyone's out. If you're looking for it, probably everyone else is looking for it too, right? So now, good luck finding it, and it is what it is. But this will all adjust, but it's going to take some time. But the good news is we'll stay on track. We're going to do as much as we can. We do as much as we can here. We build our own parts here. We machine the parts here.
Yeah.
And
You were pretty stocked up at this point.
Yeah, we're doing pretty good on that end of it.
Well, we're trying to do more. We actually are just currently working on bringing Diana ear pad production into the building.
Yeah, that's new.
Mm-hmm.
We're just starting to learn. We're just starting to learn the process of assembly and stuff like that. And in fact, we just started shipping the Dianas with the new ear pads. Yeah,
First one today.
yeah. We went through. How long has it been? We had to start by getting the foam insert molded. That's been about.
It's like a year now at
Yeah,
this
It
point.
feels like a
long time.
freaking year.
Yeah.
Yeah.
To actually have the piece molded the way we wanted in our shape, with the foam we need, etc. Yeah, almost a year, and we still don't have the finished product because the foam their foam vendor making of ours was behind on getting them foam, and of course that makes everything behind.
Mm-hmm.
So here we are again, still waiting, but supposedly the next few weeks. But yeah, we're supposedly so we got a small sampling of foam, enough to get going, but. We obviously want thousands of pieces of this, and it ain't happening, but it will happen. But yeah, it's just down to that, and the leather, the lambskin getting made and sourced here in North America, and
Yeah.
it's just on, and it's finding someone to stitch it together because we're not seamstresses. And, although we may bring that in house not too far from now because I could foresee that coming. Where if you're going through enough of this, why not make it in house? Make the whole thing in house.
Well, we're getting close.
Yeah, it's
Getting pretty close.
yeah. And then the adhesives. I mean, even that, think about that. We were looking for adhesives, right? The adhesives are all out of stock everywhere.
Right.
The typical 3M stuff that people use, you can't even get it. 12-week lead times.
Yep.
It's crazy,
Yeah. Well,
So-
and it only takes one of those things so that where you can't make any ear pads
Yeah.
that are out of stock
Yeah.
for 12 weeks.
Unfortunately, we're using stuff that we stock,
Yeah.
but we have, and it's good stuff. It'll hold skyscrapers together, so we're good.
Yep.
But yeah, so anyway, we're going through that learning curve, and we made a bunch of them now just to test and get it right down. And it's so the good news, we were finally shipping Diana's with the new ear pads and a new headband too, a new leather. It's no longer sourced overseas. It's from here, and beautiful leather. I think it's French leather, isn't it?
French cows,
I
yeah.
think the French actually made the leather, and it's brought into North America, and we have somebody assemble
It's
it. So-
surprising how difficult it can be to get an idea where something's made. Because a lot of times you ask someone, hey, where's this made? When you're buying a product from them, you're buying raw material goods from them. There's a fair amount of time they don't know, or they go to find out and they can't verify because maybe they have multiple sources and they don't know where this one came from. So if it isn't marked on the product, it's shocking how difficult it is. If you want to more or less have a proven chain of custody of where this product came from, it can be very difficult.
Yeah, you only really see that in certain industries like aircraft,
aerospace maybe.
right? Aerospace, where
Rocket
they
industry.
demand that you have to have a paper trail for every piece,
Yeah.
right to the source.
Or cutting boards.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, it's like, well, I cut this tree down and made this myself. Etsy style cutting
Oh,
board.
wow.
Okay, well,
I,
that's
wouldn't know, I don't know if we'd call that legit.
No, yeah, it's like, yeah, I cut down the tree myself in the USA,
Okay, that's
right?
cool. I get that. Yeah.
Right.
Oh, that's cool. That is legit.
Yep.
No, that's true. If you, maybe we should just get our
Some
own.
people like
Can
that.
we just like extrude our own aluminum and start doing
It's probably not practical.
that? I know it's too expensive.
But we do try to do what we can to get the stuff locally and domestically sourced. And sometimes it's actually really difficult. Sometimes it's just not made. And you need to go through some hoops to have it made either here or yourself. And making things yourself isn't always so straightforward.
But we do what we can.
Yep.
And best we could do. So on that note, we are proud to make stuff here. It's great that we can do that, that we can hire the talent in-house to be able to have everybody in-house do this stuff and do a really nice, consistent job of it where we're not dealing with inconsistencies of having other people do things. Like we've tried having other companies do things like the coatings and the paint jobs and the anodizing. And,
Yep.
oh, my God.
There's problems all around.
Yeah, I mean, if you're not, we're careful about everything, and most people aren't, and, to say the least. And anyway, we've already covered this in other videos, but the bottom line is, yeah, we're proud to be able to make it here in our own facility, and and do a bang up job of it if I do say so myself.
Those little rambling, slightly incoherent, but
Yeah,
maybe someone found it enjoyable.
yeah, maybe it's too long, but that's usual. We'll go on forever. We gotta get back to work.
Yeah.
Yes. See you, everyone. Thank you very much. Thumbs us up.